Banished by the Galactic Council, humanity conquered the Outer Rim. Part 1. The sky over Nova Terra burned with the colors of shame. Not fire, not war, just silence. A cold, clean silence that cut deeper than any explosion. Above the planet, hundreds of human ships hung in orbit like wounded birds, their lights dim, their engines quiet. Below, on the surface, millions watched the sky and waited for orders that would change everything. It had started 3 days earlier, when the Galactic Council summoned Earth's delegation to the Hall of Accord. The Council was old, older than human history, made up of 7 species. Each with empires spanning thousands of star systems. They ruled the core worlds with laws written in stone and enforced by fleets no single race could challenge. Humanity had spent 2 centuries trying to earn a seat among them. Now they were being told to leave. Commander Daniel Brooks stood at the edge of the observation deck on the orbital station Helios 9. He was tall, with tired eyes and a jaw that had clenched so long it ached. He wore the gray uniform of the United Earth Defense Fleet, but the insignia had already been stripped from his shoulders. He wasn't a commander anymore. Not in the eyes of the Council. Not in the eyes of the law. Around him, people moved like ghosts. Engineers packed tools into crates. Families clutched children close. Soldiers who once patrolled secure corridors now carried duffel bags stuffed with personal items. No one spoke much. There was nothing left to say. The verdict had been simple. Humanity was too volatile, too fast, too reckless. They built artificial minds without permission. They terraformed worlds the Council had marked as sacred. They fought border skirmishes with the Xanthari over mining rights, even after being warned twice. Worst of all, they refused to submit to genetic oversight, a rule requiring all human births to be registered and screened by Council bioethics officers. Earth said no, and that was the final straw. So the Council did what it always did to species it could not control. It banished them. All human colonies inside the core sphere, over 200 worlds, were to be evacuated within 30 standard days. All human vessels were barred from Council space. All trade, communication, and travel were cut off, and humanity was ordered to retreat beyond the Veil Nebula into the Outer Rim, a vast unmapped stretch of space known for pirates, dead stars, and forgotten wars. Daniel turned as footsteps approached. It was Lena Ortiz. She wore a simple blue jumpsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a loose braid. Once she had been one of the leading xenobiologists in the Sol system. Now her research permits were void, her lab sealed. She held a small data pad in one hand, her fingers tapping nervously. "They just sent the final coordinates," she said, her voice low. "The rendezvous point is near the Garo Belt. It's not much. Just a cluster of asteroids and a dead comms relay." Daniel nodded. "Better than nothing, is it?" She looked up at him, her eyes sharp. "We're being thrown into the dark, Daniel. No allies, no supplies. Half our ships weren't built for deep-range travel. People are going to die out there." "I know," he said, "but we're still alive now. And as long as we are, we have a chance." A chime sounded through the station. The evacuation alert. Final boarding for all civilian transports. The last shuttles would leave in 2 hours. After that, Helios 9 would be handed over to the Council's peacekeepers. Lena sighed and tucked the data pad under her arm. "Kai's still down in Engineering Bay 4. He's trying to salvage power cells from the old freighter. Says we'll need every watt we can carry." "Let him work," Daniel said. "He's one of the few people who actually knows how to keep a ship running on scrap, Kai." Morgan was young, only 24, but he'd grown up. Fixing fusion reactors on Mars Colony. 7. He didn't care about politics or Council decrees. To him, a broken engine was a puzzle, and puzzles could always be solved. Daniel had met him during the Xanthari border incident, when Kai rerouted an entire ship's power grid using spare parts from a food synthesizer. Since then, he'd become something of a legend among the fleet's engineers. As they walked through the dim corridors of the station, Daniel saw faces he'd known for years. Some nodded. Others looked away. Shame was heavy in the air. For so long, humanity had believed it was on the path to greatness. Now, they were being treated like children who had misbehaved one too many times. Outside the main hangar, a line of families waited to board the transport Aurora Dawn. A little girl clutched a stuffed dog, her eyes wide as she stared at the stars through the viewport. Her mother held her hand tightly, whispering words Daniel couldn't hear but could guess. "It'll be okay. "We'll be okay." He hoped she was right. Back on the command deck, Daniel found a final message waiting for him. It was from Admiral Cho, his former superior. The message was short. "Don't look back. Build something worth remembering." Daniel deleted it. There was no time for goodbyes. By the time Kai arrived, dragging a crate of power cells behind him, the station was nearly empty. His face was smudged with grease, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows. "Got 12 working cells," he said, panting slightly. "Not great, but better than nothing." "Good work," Daniel said. "We leave in 20 minutes. Kai nodded, then hesitated. "You think anyone out there will help us?" "No," Daniel said honestly. "But we don't need help. We need to survive, and humans are good at that." The three of them boarded the last shuttle together. As it lifted off, Nova Terra shrank behind them, a blue-green jewel wrapped in clouds now forbidden. The shuttle docked with the aging cruiser Resolute, one of the few military ships allowed to leave. Its hull was scarred from past battles, its systems patched more than replaced. But it flew, and for now, that was enough. As the Resolute cleared the station's shadow, Daniel looked out at the fleet gathered in orbit. Hundreds of ships, freighters, colony vessels, old warships, even private yachts, drifting together like a school of fish fleeing a predator. They had no plan, no destination beyond a way. But they had each other. And in the cold silence of space, that was the only thing that mattered. The engines hummed to life. The stars ahead were unknown. The path was dark, but humanity was moving forward, not as citizens of the core, but as exiles of the Rim. And exiles, Daniel thought, often become the strongest of all. Banished by the Galactic Council, humanity conquered the Outer Rim. Part 2. The Outer Rim was not empty. That was the first lie the Council had told them. From the moment the human fleet crossed the Veil Nebula, they found signs of life, old, broken, and often dangerous. Abandoned stations drifted in silent orbits. Derelict warships floated like skeletons. And on the fringes of dead star systems, strange signals flickered in and out, too regular to be natural, too faint to trace. The Resolute led the way, its sensors stretched thin. Supplies ran low within weeks. Food synthesizers broke down. Oxygen recyclers clogged with dust from poorly sealed vents. Morale sank faster than fuel reserves. Some ships turned back, hoping the Council would show mercy. None were ever heard from again. Then came the raiders. They struck near the Garo Belt, just as Lena had warned. Not a fleet, just 3 jagged insect-like vessels painted in rust and bone white. They moved fast, firing plasma nets that wrapped around human ships like spider silk. The Resolute fought back, but its weapons were outdated. 2 colony ships were torn open before Daniel ordered a retreat into the asteroid field. They lost over 600 people that day. The survivors huddled in cold corridors, listening to the static of dead comms channels. Kai worked through the night, jury-rigging shield emitters from scrap metal. Lena treated burns and fractures in a med bay lit by emergency lamps. Daniel stood on the bridge staring at the star map, wondering if exile was just another word for slow death. But then they found Vexus. It was a dead moon, gray and cratered, orbiting a burnt-out star. No atmosphere, no life signs. But deep in its shadow something glinted. A structure. Old but intact. Human scans showed it was an orbital station, massive, hollow, and strangely untouched by time. Daniel sent a scout team. They returned wide-eyed. The station was empty but functional. Power still flowed in its core. Air still cycled in sealed sections. And most importantly, its hangar bays were full of salvage, alien tech, broken drones, crates of unknown materials, and rows of dormant defense turrets. They called it Haven's Reach. Within days, ships began docking. Engineers swarmed the corridors. Families set up shelters in empty crew quarters. Kai found a working fusion core in the lower decks and got it humming again. Lena discovered a lab filled with bio-containment units, some still active, holding samples of alien flora she had only read about in forbidden archives. For the first time since exile, hope flickered, but the Rim did not give gifts without cost. A week after settling in, a distress signal crackled through the comms. It came from a freighter named the Dawn Chaser, one of the last civilian ships to join the fleet. It was under attack near the Serpentis Drift. Daniel wanted to help, but his officers argued against it. They had barely enough power to keep Haven's Reach lit. Sending a rescue ship could leave them defenseless. Kai spoke up. We patched the Resolute's engines with parts from the old freighter in Bay 3. Give me 6 hours. I can get her jump ready. Daniel looked at Lena. She nodded. If we abandon our own now, we're no better than the Council. So they went. The Resolute arrived just as the raiders were boarding the Dawn Chaser. This time they were ready. Kai had rerouted power to the forward cannons. Lena had reprogrammed the targeting AI using old military code she'd memorized. And Daniel flew the ship like he had nothing left to lose, which was true. They drove the raiders off. Not with brute force, but with tricks. Fake distress calls. Sensor ghosts. A decoy drone made from scrap that exploded in their faces. The raiders fled, confused and outmaneuvered. Back at Haven's Reach, the rescued crew brought more than gratitude. They brought news. Word was spreading across the rim. The exiles were fighting back. And they were winning. Then came the crystals. Lena found them by accident. While studying rock samples from Vexus's surface, her scanner picked up an energy signature deep underground. She convinced Daniel to let her lead a drilling team. What they unearthed changed everything. Quantum lattice crystals. Pure. Untouched. The kind the Council had banned all species from mining because they could destabilize spacetime if mishandled. But in human hands, they were perfect for next-gen drives, weapons, even medical tech. The Council had called them too dangerous. To the exiles, they were salvation. Kai built a small reactor using just 3 fist-sized crystals. It powered an entire wing of Haven's Reach for a week. He grinned like a kid on his birthday. We don't need their rules, he said. We've got better stuff. Word of the crystals leaked. Not through comms, through whispers. Traders from the fringe system started showing up, offering food, medicine, even weapons in exchange for a sliver of crystal. Daniel allowed limited trade, but only under strict watch. He knew greed could destroy them faster than any raider. One night, as he walked the outer observation deck, Lena joined him. The stars here were different, darker, sharper, without the glow of Council-controlled space. We're not just surviving anymore, she said. No, Daniel agreed. We're building. Below them, lights flickered across Haven's Reach. Welding sparks danced in the hangar bays. Children laughed in the rec hall. Engineers argued over schematics in the mess hall. It wasn't Earth, it wasn't Nova Terra, but it was theirs. Then a new signal appeared on the long-range scanner. Not a distress call, not a raid, a message. Encrypted but human-made. It came from the far side of the rim, from a system called Kestros. The message was short. We heard you're still alive. So are we. Come if you can. Daniel showed it to Kai and Lena the next morning. Kai rubbed his chin. Could be a trap. Or it could be more of us, Lena said. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at the star map, at the scattered dots marking human ships that had vanished during the retreat. Some might have made it this far. Some might have found their own havens. We go, he finally said. But carefully. They prepped a scout ship. Small, fast, armed just enough to run if needed. Kai would pilot. Lena would handle comms and scans. Daniel would command. They left at dawn cycle, the Resolute watching from orbit like a silent guardian. The jump to Kestros took 2 days. When they arrived, they found not a trap, but a miracle. A human colony, hidden in the rings of a gas giant. Dozens of ships, thousands of people, farms grown in sealed domes, a school carved into an asteroid, and at its center a flag, Earth's old blue and white, but with a black stripe through it. The mark of the exiled. The colony leader, a woman named Mara Ellis, met them at the airlock. She had lost an arm in the Zenthari Wars, replaced with a simple mechanical one. Her eyes were hard, but her handshake was firm. We thought we were alone, she said. You're not, Daniel replied. That night they shared stories over ration stew. Mara's group had fled during the first wave of evacuations, slipping past Council patrols by flying through a radiation storm. They'd survived by trading with smugglers and scavenging wrecks. They'd even fought off a raider clan twice their size. Before leaving, Daniel offered them a place at Haven's Reach. Mara hesitated, then nodded. But we bring our own rules, our own ways. Good, Daniel said. We'll need them. On the way back, Kai flew in silence for a long time. Then he said, there might be more out here. Lots more. Lena looked out the viewport. Then we find them. Daniel didn't speak. He just watched the stars blur as the ship jumped again. The outer rim was vast, yes, but it was no longer empty. And humanity, scattered and scarred, was starting to find its way home. Not to the core, but to something new, something stronger. Banished by the Galactic Council, humanity conquered the outer rim. Part 3. Haven's reach grew fast. What began as a single derelict station now pulsed with life. Ships came from all corners of the rim, some human, some not. Word had spread that the exiles were not easy prey. They traded fairly, fought fiercely, and kept their promises. That made them rare in the outer rim. Then came the Cathari. They arrived in 3 jagged vessels shaped like claws, black as void and humming with strange energy. At first, everyone braced for attack. But instead of firing, they sent a single message. We seek the ones who broke the veil. Daniel met them alone in a neutral docking bay, wearing no weapons. The Cathari envoy stepped out, a tall, chitinous being with 4 arms and eyes like polished obsidian. Its voice came through a translator, rough and clicking. You are the humans. The Banished. We are, Daniel said. You fight the raiders. You share your crystals. You do not bow. The Cathari tilted its head. The council exiled us too, for refusing to let them soften our young, for keeping our war songs alive. Lena had studied the Cathari in old archives. They were warriors, yes, but also poets and builders. The council had labeled them unstable because they valued honor over obedience. Like humans, they had been cast out for being too strong. That night, over a shared meal of ration paste and Cathari nutrient cakes, the 2 groups talked. The Cathari had lost most of their fleet in a failed uprising near the core. Only a few hundred survived, hiding in asteroid caves and dead moons. They had heard of Haven's reach through smuggler nets and came seeking allies, not charity. Daniel saw the chance. We protect each other, he said. You bring your fighters. We bring our tech. Together we hold the rim. The Cathari envoy clicked its mandibles, a sign of agreement. We call this the Iron Accord. Not long after, the Varel appeared. They came not in ships, but in drifting pods, sleek, silver spheres that unfolded like flowers when they docked. The Varel were cybernetic nomads, their bodies woven with living wire and memory gel. The council had hunted them for centuries, calling their neural networks dangerous thought weapons. In truth, the Varel could link minds across light years, sharing knowledge instantly. The council feared that kind of unity. Kai was the first to speak with them. He stood outside their lead pod, holding up a data chip. I fixed your old relay near Xylos, he said. You left it broken. I made it work again. A Varel stepped forward, tall, smooth, with eyes that shimmered like liquid metal. You understand machines, it said, its voice calm and layered like many voices speaking at once. We understand minds. Together we can see what others cannot. Lena was fascinated. She spent days with the Varel, learning how they stored memories in crystalline lattices. In return, she showed them human medicine which helped stabilize their aging biocircuits. Slowly, trust grew. With the Cathari and Varel beside them, Haven's reach became more than a refuge. It became a power Kai and Varel engineers rebuilt human jump drives using neural sync cores. Now ships could navigate the rim's chaotic gravity wells without council beacons. Lena and Cathari biologists created grafts from chitin and human tissue, armor that healed itself, gloves that could sense radiation, even eye implants that saw through cloaking fields. Daniel trained joint squads, humans fighting alongside Cathari warriors, guided by Varel scouts who could predict enemy moves seconds before they happened. They called themselves the Rim Coalition. Their first real test came when a council patrol crossed the Veil Nebula. It was a small force, just 2 scout frigates, sent to check rumors of human activity. They found more than rumors. They found an ambush. The coalition struck at the Serpentis Rift where magnetic storms masked their approach. Cathari fighters swarmed the frigates like hornets, slicing through hulls with plasma blades. Human ships jammed their comms. Varel pods latched onto their engines, feeding false data into their navigation systems. One frigate fled. The other was captured. Inside, they found logs, maps, and worst of all, plans. The Council was preparing to seal the Veil Nebula permanently with a quantum barrier. Once activated, nothing could cross it, not even light. The exiles would be trapped forever, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Daniel stared at the data. They're not just ignoring us anymore. They're trying to bury us. Lena's hands trembled as she scrolled through the files. If they finish that barrier, we lose any chance of warning others, or stopping whatever's coming. Kai looked up from a console. What's coming? Lena hesitated. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Daniel. But now, with the council closing in, silence was a luxury they couldn't afford. She pulled up an old file from her private drive. It showed strange readings from deep space, energy pulses older than any known civilization. The Varel had sensed them too. Their elders called it the Silent Hunger. The HFY War song spoke of a star-eater that woke every 10,000 years. The council knows, Lena said quietly. But they're pretending it's not real, because facing it would mean admitting they're not in control. Daniel stood. Then we make them listen. He called a meeting of all faction leaders, human captains, HFY war chiefs, Varel mind speakers. In the central chamber of Haven's Reach, under flickering lights, he laid out the truth. We can hide, he said, or we can fight. Not just for survival, for the whole galaxy. The HFY war chief slammed a fist on the table. We do not hide. We strike, the Varel speaker shimmered. We will show them what they refuse to see. And so the coalition prepared. They upgraded every ship. They mined more crystals. They trained harder. Kai designed a new class of fighter, small, fast, built from human frames, HFY armor, and Varel guidance systems. They called it the Wasp. Lena worked with Varel archivists to decode more precursor signals. They pointed to a world deep in the rim, Xylos Prime, where an ancient vault might hold answers. But before they could go, the council returned. This time it wasn't scouts. It was a full task force, 5 cruisers, 2 carriers, and a command dreadnought bearing the seal of the High Conquered. They broadcast a single message: surrender your leaders and your crystals, or be erased. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Resolute, now refitted with HFY plating and Varel sensors. Around him, the coalition fleet gathered, over 60 ships patched, painted, and ready. He opened a channel to all of them. They think we're scared. They think we're broken. Let's show them what happens when you push the Banished too far. The battle began at dawn cycle. The council ships fired first, their beams slicing through empty space where coalition fighters had been seconds before. The Wasps darted like ghosts, striking engine pods and sensor arrays. HFY boarding parties leapt across hulls, cutting through airlocks with sonic blades. Varel pods latched onto the dreadnought, flooding its systems with corrupted code. It was chaos. Beautiful, brutal chaos. And in the middle of it all, Daniel Brooks smiled, because for the first time humanity wasn't begging for a seat at the table, they were building their own. Banished by the Galactic Council, humanity conquered the Outer Rim. Part 4. The victory at Serpentis Rift changed everything. The Council task force was not destroyed, but it was broken. 2 cruisers lay dead in the void. The dreadnought limped back across the Veil Nebula, its hull scarred, its pride shattered. For the first time in centuries, the Corps had tasted defeat. And the taste was human. News spread faster than light. Not through official channels, those were still silent, but through smugglers, drifters, and rebel cells hiding in council shadows. Whispers became shouts. On a dozen worlds, workers stopped building council ships. On others, young soldiers refused orders. Even some minor council species began asking questions. If the Banished could fight like this, what else had their leaders been hiding? Daniel knew they couldn't rest. Winning one battle wasn't enough. The council would come back with more ships, more fire, more lies. So he pushed harder. Haven's Reach became a forge. Factories ran day and night. Children learned to weld before they learned to read. Every scrap of metal, every drop of fuel, every working circuit was used. Kai stood at the heart of it all. He barely slept. His hands were always stained with oil, his eyes red from staring at schematics. He redesigned the Wasp fighters again, adding Varel neural links that let pilots share senses mid-flight. He built shield generators that pulsed in time with HFY war drums, confusing enemy targeting systems. And he started work on something bigger, a new kind of ship, one that could carry the fight to the Council's doorstep if needed. Lena, meanwhile, dug deeper into the past. With help from Varel memory weavers and HFY lore keepers, she pieced together fragments of an ancient language found on Xylos Prime. The symbols matched nothing in known records, but they spoke of a great sleep and a watcher in the dark, The more she learned, the more certain she became. Something was coming. Something older than the Council, older than stars. She showed Daniel the latest translation one evening in the quiet corner of the command deck. "It's not just a myth," she said. "The pulses we've been tracking, they're getting stronger, closer, the Council knows. They've been watching the deep scans for decades, but they've done nothing. They're too busy controlling what's inside their borders to care about what's outside." Daniel stared at the star map. A red dot blinked far beyond the rim, deep in the uncharted void. "Then we go there," he said, "before it's too late. But first they had to secure the rim." The Coalition launched a series of strikes, not to conquer, but to protect. They hit Council supply depots near the Veil's edge, cutting off fuel and parts. They freed enslaved outcasts from mining camps on frozen moons. They gave weapons to rebel cells and taught them how to fight smart, not just hard. Each victory drew more to their cause. Former slaves joined as scouts. Rogue pilots brought their ships. Even a few disillusioned Council scientists defected, bringing data on forbidden tech. The Coalition was no longer just human, Cathari and Varel. It was becoming something new, a patchwork family of the unwanted. Then came the broadcast. It happened on a quiet cycle. No warning. No signal build-up. Just a sudden burst across every open channel in the rim. At first, people thought it was a glitch. Then they saw the face. It was Council Speaker Virek, a tall, silver-scaled diplomat known for his calm voice and cold eyes. But now he looked tired. His scales were dull. His words were slow. "People of the Outer Rim," he began. "What you call the Rim Coalition has committed acts of war against the lawful order of the galaxy. They steal, they destroy, they spread fear. But we have learned something troubling." He paused. The silence stretched. "Our deep space monitors have detected an anomaly, origin unknown, energy signature. Unlike anything recorded, it is moving toward inhabited space. We do not yet know its nature. But we cannot ignore it." He looked straight into the lens. "If the exiles have knowledge of this threat, they must share it. The safety of all species depends on unity, not rebellion." The message ended. Across Haven's Reach, people stood frozen. Some cheered, thinking the Council was finally admitting they were wrong. Others cursed, believing it was a trick to lure them into a trap. Lena shook her head. "It's not a trick. They're scared," Daniel agreed. "They wouldn't show weakness unless they had to." That night he made a choice. He stepped onto the main comms platform with Kai at the controls and Lena beside him. He didn't wear a uniform. Just a simple gray shirt, his face unshaven, his eyes clear. He spoke to the whole galaxy. "We do not ask for forgiveness," he said, his voice steady. "We were cast out for thinking for ourselves, for building what we believed was right. Now you say a threat is coming. We believe you. Because we've seen it too." He held up a data chip. "This contains everything we know. Star charts, energy readings, translations from ancient vaults. It's yours. Take it, use it. But know this. We will not kneel to save you. We will stand beside you if you're willing to stand as equals." He ended the broadcast without fanfare. No music, no flags. Just silence. Within hours, replies poured in. Not from the Council, but from its people. A Xanthari miner sent coordinates of hidden crystal veins. A young engineer from a core world uploaded blueprints for cloaking tech. A schoolteacher on Viridia sent a message. "My students believe in you." Even the Council's own peacekeepers began to question their orders. Patrol ships started turning away from Rim borders. Some vanished entirely. The Iron Accord was no longer just a pact of outcasts. It was becoming a movement. And then, the final piece fell into place. Kai and a Varel team returned from Xylos Prime. They had cracked the vault. Inside, they found not weapons, but a map. A star map showing safe paths through the coming storm. And a warning. The Watcher fed on fear, on division. It grew stronger when species fought each other. "The only way to stop it," Lena said, reading the final inscription, "is to stand together." Daniel looked at his friends, Kai, covered in dust and grinning. Lena, eyes bright with purpose. And beyond them, thousands of faces from 100 worlds. The Council had banished humanity to the dark. But in that dark, they had lit a fire, and now the whole galaxy could see it. Banished by the Galactic Council, humanity conquered the Outer Rim. Part 5. The Council came not with guns, but with silence. No warships. No ultimatums. Just a single white-hulled envoy vessel, flying no flags, drifting slowly toward Haven's Reach under dim running lights. It stopped at the edge of the defense perimeter and waited. For 3 full cycles it did nothing. No signals. No demands. Just stillness. Daniel watched it from the Resolute's bridge. He didn't trust it. Silence from the council had always meant trouble. But Lena believed it was different this time. "They're scared," she said. "Not of us. Of what's coming," Kai agreed. "If they wanted to fight, they'd have brought a fleet. This is a question." So Daniel gave the order. "Let them dock." But under watch. Every corridor they walked would have armed guards. Every word they spoke would be recorded. The envoy was allowed into the central chamber of Haven's Reach, where representatives of the coalition waited, humans, Cathari, Virel, and others who had joined the cause. The envoy was not a soldier. It was Elder Mira Solon, once the Council's chief science advisor, now stripped of her title for leaking data about the deep space anomaly. She was old, her face lined with worry, her hands trembling slightly as she stepped forward. "I come not as the Council," she said, voice thin but clear. "I come as one who remembers what unity once meant." She placed a small crystal on the table. It glowed faintly. "This contains proof. The Watcher is real. It has already consumed 3 dead systems beyond the core's edge. The Council tried to hide it, but the truth cannot be buried forever." She looked at Daniel. "We need your help, not your surrender. Your strength." A murmur ran through the room. Cathari warriors shifted. Virel speakers shimmered with shared thought. Humans exchanged glances. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Daniel stepped forward. "We'll help, but not for the Council. For the galaxy, and we do it our way," Mira nodded. "That is all we ask." What followed was not a treaty signed in gold ink. It was a pact forged in necessity. The Coalition would share their data, their maps, their hybrid ships. In return, the Council would open its archives, lift the exile order, and grant the Rim species full voice in the coming defense. But Daniel made one thing clear. Humanity would not rejoin as subjects. They would stand as equals, or not at all. The Council, fractured and humbled, agreed. Lena stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly, a temporary body made of old Council members and new Rim delegates. In a chamber once reserved for judgment, she presented the full truth. She showed the precursor records from Xylos Prime. She played the energy pulses. She explained how the Watcher fed on division, growing stronger with every war, every border dispute, every act of fear. "The only way to stop it," she said, "is to stop fighting each other." Kai then demonstrated the new ship, the Unity-class cruiser. Built in secret over the last cycle, it combined human engineering, Cathari armor, and Virel navigation. It could fly through gravity storms, cloak without power spikes, and link mines across fleets. It was not a weapon of conquest. It was a shield for all. The Assembly watched in silence. Even the oldest Council elders leaned forward, eyes wide. Then came the final test. Deep space monitors flared red. The Watcher had crossed into known space, not as a fleet, not as a planet, but as a distortion, a ripple in reality itself, swallowing light, twisting time, leaving silence in its wake. Systems on the edge of the core went dark one by one. Panic threatened to spread, but this time the galaxy did not fracture. Under the new accord, fleets moved together. Council carriers flew beside Rim Wasps. Cathari warriors boarded Virel-guided ships. Human engineers patched alien engines. For the first time in history, the galaxy acted as one. Daniel commanded the front line from the Unity cruiser. Lena coordinated science teams from orbit. Kai stayed in the heart of Haven's Reach, rerouting power, fixing comms, keeping the network alive. The battle was not fought with cannons alone. It was fought with trust, with shared data, with pilots from 10 species flying in perfect sync because they finally believed in the same cause. And it worked. The Watcher slowed, then stopped, then unraveled, like smoke and wind, when faced with a galaxy that refused to fear itself. When it was over, stars returned to their places. Comms crackled back to life, and across 1,000 worlds people breathed again. In the aftermath, the old Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Concord of Free Systems, a new alliance where every voice mattered, no matter how small, no matter how strange. Haven's Reach became its first neutral capital. Daniel was offered a seat on the High Council. He refused. "I'm a builder, not a ruler," he said. He stayed on the Resolute, now a peacekeeping ship, patrolling the Rim not to conquer but to protect. Lena opened a new academy on Xylos Prime, teaching young minds from every species how to read the stars not as borders, but as bridges. Kai never stopped tinkering. He built faster ships, cleaner reactors, even a garden dome that grew earth flowers under alien suns. When asked why, he just smiled. Someone's got to keep the future running. Humanity was no longer banished. They were not conquerors either. They were something better. Guardians of a galaxy that had learned, too late, that strength lies not in control, but in connection. And out in the quiet dark, beyond the last beacon, the stars shone a little brighter.